Captain Yelena Cortez stood at the helm of the TAS Valiant Horizon, her sharp eyes scanning the vast, uncharted expanse before them. The stars twinkled coldly in the infinite black, their light swallowed by the distance. A faint hum from the ship's engines was the only sound breaking the silence. Behind her, the crew worked in sync, unaware of the tension mounting within her chest. The mysterious SOS had come in the dead of night, the transmission barely a whisper across the galactic ether. It was faint, barely coherent, but it was unmistakably urgent, and it was coming from a region of space known for its peril. The Thalrex Expanse, a lawless area littered with unstable stellar phenomena, and home to more than a few hostile alien species. The signal had originated from deep within the expanse, an area beyond even the most experienced navigator's reach. The uncharted space was considered dangerous to explore, with its gravitational anomalies and black holes lurking like hidden predators. Even Earth's most advanced fleets had avoided venturing too far into its heart. But the faint voice in the transmission sparked something in Cortez. The AI on board, Maya, projected the last part of the SOS message again across the bridge. "Help us. We are dying." The plea sent a ripple through the crew. "Captain, we're certain it's not a trap." First Officer Jarvis Miller's voice broke through the quiet hum of the ship's command deck. His concern was palpable. He wasn't the only one wondering if this was some sort of sophisticated alien ruse. Cortez turned slowly, her face set in a firm, unreadable mask. "We won't know unless we go. Earth's doctrine is clear. Wherever sentient life is in peril, we respond. We'll bring aid. No questions." Miller hesitated, clearly unconvinced. And what if the distress signal was meant to lure us into an ambush? "You know what's out there. Some of the most ruthless species in the galaxy. We don't know if they're even still alive. We don't leave anyone behind," she replied with a cold certainty. "Not if we can help it." Her words were a quiet reminder of Earth's unspoken mantra. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Humanity had earned a reputation across the stars for their willingness to engage in rescue missions, no matter the odds. It wasn't about politics. It was about survival. Cortez's fingers hovered over the console. With a firm press, she sent the coordinates to the navigational system. "Plot a course. Set a course for the Thalrex Expanse." The ship rumbled as the FTL drive powered up. They were already too deep into their journey to turn back. As the stars outside blurred and elongated, the ship leaked into faster-than-light travel. But even as Cortez sat back in her chair, she couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be far from simple. The unknown stretched before them, an ominous horizon of danger and hope. The TA's Valiant Horizon emerged from the wormhole with a sharp lurch, the gravity wells of the Thalrex Expanse pulling at the ship's hull like unseen hands. Cortez gripped the edge of her command chair as the ship shuddered under the stress of the jump, her eyes narrowing as the star field outside distorted. The strange anomaly in the space ahead grew clearer, a hazy reflection of distant stars, dimmed by the expanse's unnatural turbulence. They had arrived. The wreckage was almost surreal in its scale. Massive chunks of debris drifted in the vast void. Battered moon fragments, broken ships, twisted metal that seemed to tell stories of unimaginable violence. The heart of it all was the Orcs dreadnought, its once proud form, now a hollowed-out shell, its edges charred and scorched by unrelenting fire. It hung motionless, like a ghost ship, with only the faintest flicker of life within. The dim glow from the failing engines cast an eerie pall over the scene. "Shit," Lieutenant Kelly on sensors muttered, his voice filled with awe and unease. "This doesn't look like a battle. More like execution." Cortez didn't answer at first. Her eyes scanned the starboard viewports, her mind processing what she saw. The Orcs Dominion ships were known for their beauty and grace, their technological might and expression of their once glorious empire. But now, the wreckage before them was a testament to something far darker. "Prepare the boarding party," Cortez said, breaking the silence. "Miller, you're with me. Gather the med team. We might need to move fast." "Understood, Captain," Miller replied. His voice was steady, but there was a hint of discomfort in it. No one ever liked to board a ship in such a state, let alone an alien one, especially when there was no guarantee what they would find inside. Minutes later, the docking bay opened and the airlock sequence engaged. The boarding party stepped into the decompressed corridor of the Arixal ship, their footsteps echoing in the unnatural stillness. The smell of burned metal and singed air lingered. Holographic consoles flickered intermittently along the walls, casting strange, flickering shadows. The glow from the alien technology created an unsettling atmosphere as they advanced deeper into the wreck. "We need to find survivors," Cortez ordered as the team moved forward, weapons at the ready. "Check every deck. Search for any sign of life." They found the survivors in the central command room, huddled together in a darkened corner. 3 Arixal, strange, elongated beings with dark, reflective skin, were barely conscious, their limbs twitching in weak spasms. Their eyes, however, were wide open, glowing faintly in the dim light, and they seemed to be aware of their saviors. Cattell, the apparent leader of the survivors, struggled to sit up, his voice a hoarse rasp. You came for us," he whispered, as though the very idea was impossible. His words were coated in disbelief, but there was gratitude too. Cortez knelt beside him, her tone firm but compassionate. "You're not alone. We'll get you to safety." As she spoke, the air around them seemed to hum with a growing tension, as if the very ship itself was holding its breath. A deep rumble suddenly shook the Arixal dreadnought, followed by a faint but distinct vibration from somewhere outside the ship. Someone was out there. Cattell's pale, elongated face stared at Captain Cortez with a mixture of disbelief and caution. His deep, dark eyes were unblinking, studying her as though he were searching for a hidden agenda behind her words. His people had never shown much interest in humans before. If anything, they'd regarded Earth's expansion into the stars with disdain. But now, his species was on the brink of annihilation, and humanity had stepped in to offer aid. The quiet hum of the ship's failing systems was the only sound in the room as Cortez knelt beside him, careful not to crowd him. His eyes flickered over to his companions, 2 other Arixal, equally frail, their once mighty forms reduced to shadows of what they had been. Their advanced technology had failed them, and their empire shattered. "You said we came for you," Cattell rasped, his voice barely audible. "You, humans, you have no reason to be here." Cortez paused, considering her words carefully. "We didn't come because we had to. We came because we can. Earth believes in helping those who cannot help themselves. It's what we do." Cattell's eyes narrowed as he absorbed her words. The Arixal had never been the type to ask for help. To them, strength was everything. Dominance, power, control. Weakness was not tolerated. The fact that they were now reduced to pleading for assistance from an inferior species was a bitter pill for Cattell to swallow. "We did not expect this," Cattell continued, the edges of his voice sharp with a mix of gratitude and suspicion. "To have you intervene, there must be more at stake." Before Cortez could respond, the low, unsettling hum outside the ship grew louder. It was a rumble that seemed to seep into the walls, vibrating through the deck plates beneath their feet. It was a sound that made the hairs on the back of Cortez's neck stand on end, like the growl of a predator circling its prey. "Captain," Miller called from the hallway, his voice tense. "You need to see this." Cortez stood, motioning for Cattell to stay put as she hurried to the door. The boarding team was already assembled, scanning the external monitors with growing concern. The view on the main screen confirmed what they had all feared. A large fleet was emerging from the shadows of the nearby asteroid belt, sleek ships gliding into view, black-hulled, angular, and deadly. The ships radiated a cold, terrifying precision. The Trelvax Combine had arrived. "They'd found us," Cattell whispered from behind her, his voice trembling. "The Trelvax." Cortez felt a chill race down her spine. The Trelvacs were known throughout the galaxy for one thing: total annihilation. The Arixal had fled them once before. But this time, they would not be running. The Trelvacs had come to finish what they had started. Cortez didn't waste a second. "Miller, get us moving. We're not sticking around for a fight." But as the Valiant Horizon powered up, the massive alien ships grew closer, their intent clear. The battle for survival had just begun. The external hull of the Valiant Horizon groaned as the ship's engines fired up, pushing them forward. Cortez's fingers hovered over the tactical display, her gaze fixed on the approaching Trelvacs fleet. The ships were moving with brutal precision, their dark hulls a terrifying omen. They outnumbered Earth's forces by far, and their ships were clearly designed for war. Yet there was something unsettling about the way the Trelvacs operated, something off. It wasn't just their design or their technology, but the way their ships seemed to almost linger on the edge of engagement, as though waiting for something. The fleet didn't advance at full speed. They were circling, calculating. Miller's voice cut through her thoughts. "Captain, the fleet is closing in. The Trelvacs have locked onto our position. We're about to be surrounded. Get us out of here." Cortez barked. "Plot a course to the nearest station, maximum speed." But even as the Valiant Horizon shifted course, the Trelvac ships kept pace. A chill crawled down Cortez's spine. They were being herded. "We can't outrun them, Captain," Miller said, his voice strained as the ship began to shake under fire. "The Trelvacs are too fast. They've got us in their sights." Cortez clenched her jaw. The Valiant Horizon wasn't an unarmed cruiser, it was a warship. But no matter how powerful their weapons or how advanced their shields, they couldn't stand against this much firepower for long. "Captain, you need to hear this." Cautel's voice came from behind, his usual calm shattered by urgency. "I've seen this before. These tactics, they're not just random. The Trelvacs are not here to win. They're here to wipe us out." Cortez turned to face him, narrowing her eyes. "Explain." "The Trelvacs aren't just conquerors," Cautel said, his voice low and grim. "They're exterminators. The Arixal fought them once, decades ago. They didn't just defeat us. They hunted us. For sport, for power. When they invade, they don't leave survivors." A cold knot formed in Cortez's stomach. She'd suspected something was off about the Trelvacs' approach, but hearing it confirmed was far worse than she had imagined. The Arixal had been beaten before, crushed under the Trelvacs' heel, and now they were back to finish the job. "But if they know you're here," Cortez started, her mind racing. "Why haven't they attacked us yet?" Cautel's eyes flickered. "Because they want us to know. They want us to feel the fear before the final strike. And because they want you to join the hunt." Cortez's gut twisted. The Trelvacs weren't just enemies. They were predators who relished the thrill of the kill. "Can we fight back?" Miller asked, his voice full of quiet desperation. Cautel looked away, his expression pained. "You can try, but the Trelvacs are a race of hunters, Captain. They don't simply destroy. They revel in it. And once they have a target, they never miss." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The team exchanged tense looks, the weight of what they were facing sinking in. They had thought they were here to save the Arixal, but now it was clear. They were all prey. Cortez set her jaw. "Then we'll show them what happens when they mistake humanity for easy prey." With a fierce determination, she turned back to the tactical display. "Miller, get the fleet ready. We fight, or we die trying." The battle for survival was no longer just about saving the Arixal. It was about humanity's place in the stars, and proving that even in the face of extinction, they would not be easy prey. Admiral Kweku Imba paced back and forth on the bridge of the Taas Dominion's Wrath, Earth's flagship, his dark eyes scanning the tactical readouts that flickered across the command deck. The fleet had mobilized quickly, a response forged from years of preparation. But even with Earth's might at their disposal, Memba knew the situation was dire. The Trelvax Combine wasn't like any enemy humanity had faced before. They were predators, trained in annihilation, and they never left a witness behind. Admiral, the communications officer, Lieutenant Roland, called out, her voice tight with urgency. We've received the latest reports from the Valiant Horizon. Captain Cortez is requesting reinforcements immediately. Emba's face tightened. Cortez, one of the fleet's best captains, wasn't one to panic. If she was calling for backup, the situation was worse than he had anticipated. Signal the fleet, Memba said, his voice commanding. All ships, prepare for full engagement. Target the Trelvax forces. We will make them regret this. The Dominion's Wrath was a massive vessel, its hull bristling with weapons. Railguns, plasma lances, and anti-fighter missile arrays. It was one of the most advanced warships in Earth's arsenal. But against a fleet of the Trelvax's caliber, even that would only carry them so far. Admiral, came the voice of Fleet Captain Maria Lopez, his second in command. If the Trelvax are hunting them, they won't stop until they're all dead. We need a strategy, something they won't expect. Memba paused, his mind racing through countless tactical scenarios. He knew Lopes was right. The Trelvax were methodical in their hunting. Every strike, every maneuver was designed to break the will of their enemies. They weren't just after victory. They wanted fear, pain, and submission. We're going to have to outsmart them, Memba said finally, his eyes lighting up with a sudden realization. We have to give them something they can't predict. He turned to the tactical officer. Lieutenant, send a series of false signals. Make it look like we're retreating, pulling back to regroup. Get the Valiant Horizon to send a distress signal. Make them think we're vulnerable. Are you suggesting we set a trap? Lopes asked, incredulous. Emba's lips curled into a grim smile. Exactly. If the Trelvax think we're weak, they'll come at us full force, and when they do, we'll hit them hard. Lopes hesitated but nodded. Understood. We'll need every ship to follow suit. As Emba turned back to the viewport, watching the enemy fleet approach from the distance, a sense of grim determination settled over him. The Trelvax might have underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, but they were about to learn that Earth was far more than just a collection of planets and star systems. It was a force that had survived wars, genocide, and extinction, and it would not bow to any predator, no matter how powerful. Send the signal, Emba ordered. Let them come. Back on the Valiant Horizon, Cortez's heart raced as she watched the unfolding chaos. The Trelvax had begun their advance, but instead of retreating as expected, the human fleet had launched a series of decoy signals, feigning weakness. It was a dangerous gambit. If the Trelvax caught on, they would overwhelm them in seconds. But if the Trelvax were too arrogant to suspect a trap, humanity might have a chance. Miller, get ready for a fight, Cortez said, turning to her first officer. When the Trelvax come for us, we make them regret it. She didn't have time to think about whether it would work. All she could do now was trust that Earth's last hope would be enough. The TA's Valiant Horizon drifted through the shadows of an asteroid field, its engines idling in a rare moment of stillness. The crew held their breath, waiting. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft beeping of the navigation console and the occasional hum of the ship's failing systems. The Trelvax fleet, no doubt, was closing in. Cortez stood at the helm, her eyes scanning the external monitors. Every inch of her body was tense, as if she could feel the approaching threat even before the sensors detected it. Her fingers hovered over the controls. It wasn't a matter of if they would attack. It was a matter of when. Miller, she said quietly, her voice steady but laced with the urgency of the moment. We need to be ready. When they strike, we hit hard and fast. No hesitation. I hear you, Captain, Miller replied, his voice tight with barely contained tension. He turned to the crew, his orders crisp and clear. Get all stations to full combat readiness. We're about to show them exactly who they're dealing with. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, each member acutely aware of what was at stake. The mood on the bridge was a volatile mix of determination and fear. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy that had left nothing but destruction in its wake across the galaxy. But Cortez had made her decision. There was no turning back now. Then the first tremor hit. It wasn't a direct hit, but a tremor nonetheless, an impact from the Trelvax fleet's long-range weapons, designed to rattle and test their resolve. Cortez's hands tightened around the console as she felt the ship shudder under the force of the strike. "Shields holding steady," Lieutenant Kelly reported, his voice calm but strained. "Minimal damage to portside armor. They're probing us." "Let them think they're winning," Cortez muttered, more to herself than anyone else. The Trelvax ships continued their slow, deliberate approach, each one gliding like a predator stalking its prey. They had no idea what was about to hit them. "We're in position," Miller reported from the weapons station. "All decoys activated. We've sent the distress signal. They're taking the bait." Cortez's heart pounded in her chest. The moment they had been waiting for was almost here. The valiant Horizon, along with the rest of Earth's fleet, had made itself a tempting target. The Trelvax, confident in their superiority, would believe they had the upper hand. It was now up to them to prove just how wrong they were. Then, without warning, the Trelvax fleet surged forward, their ships activating their deadly weapons in unison. The sky seemed to crack as energy beams sliced through the dark void, heading straight for the valiant Horizon. Cortez acted in an instant. "Brace for impact," she shouted. "Engage evasive maneuvers." The ship lurched as Miller slammed the controls forward, sending the valiant Horizon into a dizzying roll, narrowly avoiding the incoming fire. But that wasn't the real trap. As the Trelvax fired, they unwittingly moved into position. "Fire," Cortez commanded. The valiant Horizon's heavy plasma cannons erupted with brutal force, their powerful beams slamming into the flank of the nearest Trelvax ship. At the same time, Earth's fleet, hidden in the asteroid belt, unleashed a barrage of long-range missiles. The Trelvax fleet, overconfident and unprepared for a counterattack, was thrown into disarray. The first Trelvax ship exploded in a spectacular fireball, its debris scattering into space like shrapnel. The second was quick to follow, then a third. Earth's trap had worked. The Trelvax were no longer the hunters. They had become the hunted. "Direct hit," Lieutenant Kelly shouted, his eyes wide in disbelief. "We're taking them down." Cortez watched in stunned satisfaction as the enemy fleet reeled from the unexpected assault. This was humanity's moment, an underdog story written in the stars. But even as she allowed herself a brief moment of triumph, she knew the war was far from over. "We've only just begun," Cortez said, her voice grim. "Prepare for the next wave. They'll come at us harder now." The Trelvax might have underestimated Earth's resolve, but they were about to learn that humanity's true power was not in their weapons or technology. It was in their spirit. The chaos in space unfolded like a storm. The Trelvax fleet, once so sure of their impending victory, was now scrambling. The first wave of plasma and missiles had shattered their formation, sending their ships into wild evasions. The sudden loss of their advanced ships, their pride and the core of their fleet, was more than just a tactical failure. It was a humiliating blow to their predatory instincts. Cortez stood at the helm of the valiant Horizon, her eyes locked on the tactical screen as the aftermath of the first wave played out. The enemy ships were disoriented, but they were adapting quickly. The Trelvax had been bred for survival, their minds trained to recalibrate and retaliate with ruthless precision. They wouldn't stay off balance for long. "Miller," Cortez said, her voice firm. "We need to hit them with everything we've got. Now." "I've already initiated the next phase," Miller replied, his eyes flickering over his console. "All secondary weapons are online, ready to fire." Cortez nodded, the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. The valiant Horizon's sensors had locked onto the remaining Trelvax ships, and with a swift command, their heavy artillery let loose once more. This time, however, they were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for revenge. Firing, Miller shouted, and the ship's plasma lances surged to life. Brilliant bolts of energy tore through the vacuum of space, smashing into the nearest Trelvax vessel with devastating force. The explosion that followed was nothing short of catastrophic, but the Trelvax were not an enemy easily defeated. Within seconds, the remaining fleet reorganized, retaliating with a fury that made the previous strike seem like a mere skirmish. One of the Trelvax capital ships, massive, hulking, and armed with weapons capable of decimating entire planets, fired its main cannon, sending a blast of pure energy streaking toward the valiant horizon. The shields flared in a brilliant burst of blue light as the impact hit, and the ship rocked violently. "Shields at 70%. Lieutenant Kelly shouted, his face tight with concentration. "We can't take many more hits like that." Cortez's mind raced. The Trelvax had the advantage in sheer firepower, and they had the speed to outmaneuver the valiant horizon. But humanity had something the Trelvax did not: the will to fight for survival, no matter the odds. "We won't give them the chance to finish us," Cortez said, her voice cool and controlled despite the chaos. "Initiate evasive maneuvers. Prepare to launch our boarding pods. We're taking the fight to them." "What?" Miller blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "Captain, you're suggesting—" "We're suggesting they feel the weight of their arrogance," Cortez interrupted. "We'll board their ships. We'll tear them apart from the inside." Miller's expression hardened. "Understood." In a matter of moments, the valiant horizon spun sharply, darting toward the nearest Trelvax capital ship. The crew worked in perfect sync, and within minutes, the boarding pods were prepared for launch. The moment they hit the enemy hull, humanity's war for survival would spill onto the decks of the Trelvax ships. The boarding party would give them no room to breathe. No quarter. This was humanity's fight, one they would never lose. "Pods away," Miller shouted as the first set of launchers fired. The pods shot out like missiles, streaking toward the heart of the enemy fleet. Cortez stood at the viewport, watching the pods vanish into the void. She could feel the pulse of battle in her chest. They weren't just defending themselves anymore. They were turning the tide of war. Humanity would not be wiped out. The boarding pods screamed through the void, their hulls scorching under the intense friction of space. Cortez's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the pods streak toward the nearest Trelvax capital ship. The Trelvax had never expected humanity to engage them on this level, on their turf, in their ships, where they ruled with cold, merciless efficiency. But now they would understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in the weapons they wielded, but in their sheer will to survive. "Captain, the pods are almost on target," Miller reported, his voice tense. "They're hitting the hull in 30 seconds. "Prepare the crew," Cortez replied, her expression cold and focused. "We board or we die. No turning back." The moments seemed to stretch, a battle of anticipation as the pods closed in on the Trelvax ship. Outside the bridge, the sounds of the ongoing conflict raged, the clash of plasma and railgun fire, the occasional shudder of the ship under heavy impacts. But Cortez could feel something shifting in the air. The battle was changing. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were fighting back. "Pods deployed," Lieutenant Kelly called, his voice rising over the noise. "We're in." Cortez stood at the ready, gripping her tactical pistol as the ship's internal alarms blared. Her team, clad in heavy combat armor, moved swiftly to the hatch. She gave them one final look, a silent promise that they would emerge victorious, no matter the cost. The hatch slid open, and Cortez led the charge. The cold, metallic interior of the Trelvax ship was alien in every sense. Their technology, their design. It was all an enigma, a twisted mockery of Earth's own. The walls pulsed with an eerie, dim glow, casting long shadows across the vast halls. But Cortez didn't falter. They had come here for one purpose: to destroy the Trelvax from the inside out. Her team moved swiftly, cutting through the enemy soldiers with brutal efficiency. The Trelvax, caught off guard by the human assault, scrambled to respond, but their panic was evident. They had never anticipated a fight like this, a ground battle on their own ships, on their terms. "Captain, we've secured the main corridor," Lieutenant Orton called, his voice crackling over the comms. "But we got more on the way." Cortez didn't hesitate. "Hold the line. We can't let them regroup." The Trelvax soldiers came in waves, their weapons powerful, but their tactics disorganized. They had expected an easy victory. Humans weren't supposed to board their ships. Humans were supposed to die in space, crushed under their overwhelming firepower. But the Trelvax were learning too late that humanity would never go quietly. Cortez's team moved deeper into the ship, finding the control center, the heart of the Trelvax vessel. Once they destroyed it, the Trelvax would lose their grip on this ship, and the tide of the battle would truly turn. But just as they reached the control room, a massive explosion shook the ship. A new wave of Trelvax reinforcements poured in, led by one of the Trelvax commanders, a towering figure whose cruel, alien eyes locked onto Cortez. The final confrontation was here. "We finish this now," Cortez growled, her eyes narrowing as she drew her sidearm. This was humanity's last stand, a stand they would not lose.